Welcome to a Healing Peace podcast. My name is Kimir Baker. I am an overcomer, writer, speaker, and God enthusiast. I am fueled by helping women achieve their emotional healing so that they can live the abundant life God has for them. In this podcast series, we provide faith-based inspiration to mend from emotional hurt, along with tools and tips for emotional wellness. In your journey, as you apply these tools and tips, you will begin to live the transformed life that you always desired. In fact, you will possess a new you. Welcome back, family. Before I jump into today's episode, you know these are like my PSAs. I have several announcements. And I'll tell you the one announcement, I keep telling myself, I don't know why I keep forgetting to tell you guys this. But every time we do a tools and tips episode, which was last week, we have them on our website so that you can go back, flip through them, pick out things that you want to work through and continue your own journey. So they're there, healingpeace.com/tools. And you know my wonderful second PSA. We've heard it many times, which is please subscribe to our channel in whatever music device you're in. And not only that, go ahead and click on them high stars and leave us a great review so that we can reach more people. Thank you. That was my wonderful PSAs for today. All right, so let's get back into this week's episode. I would like to say we are doing something a little different. If you've been with us for a long time, you got used to my little pattern, which is I do a wonderful lesson, and then we go and do some great interviews, and then we have some tools and tips. And you know what? Sometimes we deserve a little change up. I know it's not in my vocabulary usually. So as we do this change up, trust me, I had to work through my change too. But I think you're going to enjoy it. Today, we're going to start out by having somebody on the show with us early. And today, I have my friend, Deanne. If you remember a long time ago, she was on the show and we talked about having grace and being worthy. And she did such a wonderful job. I wanted to invite her back because she's going to be doing some great things with us. So Deanne, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Kamir. It's fabulous to be here with you.
Oh, I appreciate it. You're always so kind and generous. Because usually in my shows, I'll be pumping up my interviewers because I just like who they are and what they represent. But you're like the first person who I interview who pumped me up. And so it always makes it even more exciting. And for our listeners, I know it's been a while since you've been on the show, so if you could give us like a little tidbit, who is Deanne?
Well, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a grandma, I'm a follower of Jesus, I'm a life coach, and I'm also a student in a master's degree program for counseling.
Yeah, which I definitely enjoy that part about your journey at the moment and all the wonderful things that you're learning and how your brain is being filled with just more tools to how to help people. And I will say too that you will have tools that will last a lifetime.
Yes, and I hope many people's lifetimes. I hope many people find more freedom in Jesus to be who he created them to be.
Yes, and that's why you're here, which is so exciting. And with that in mind, the things I want to talk about today is us being knocked off balance. And when I think about that, from a physical perspective, usually it means, you're walking around and because I know for me, I have equilibrium issues. So sometimes I may bump into stuff when I'm not supposed to bump into them. And I'm a little knocked off balance. Or for those who are getting older, sometimes you stand up too fast and then you're like, whoa, you get a little dizzy.
Yeah.
And that too can kind of be a little bit off balance. But what I would like to talk about though is what does being off balance mean from an emotional and mental perspective?
Yeah, that's fantastic because we do know what it's like to be dizzy or off balance physically. But man, when we're off balance emotionally, it's like we can only react instead of respond. It's like when if you were someone to walk right up and just punch you in the gut,
Mm,
you're knocked off balance physically, but your brain says, what's going on? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't understand what's just happening. And you just kind of fall into a pit of reacting
mm,
instead of being able to respond in a way that really lines up with who you are, who you want to be. You know, some of the things that uh, research has shown that knocks people off balance is just dealing with the daily hassles of our life.
mm.
Those small little things, like everybody knows the big things can knock you off balance. If you lose a loved one or have to move or, some big event happens, but those little daily hassles are like little ropes pulling you off balance all the time, pulling shifts to our perspective, bringing us towards feeling hopeless, powerless, or even drained just emotionally from worry and anxiety. All these kind of things pull our emotions, pull our thinking, and they pull us off balance.
Mm. As you were speaking, one of the things that really stood out to me and was recently is always a wrestle. I like the analogy of the rope, the rope pulling, because when I think about the rope pulling, it's like it's doing it in a way that you don't want to be led.
Yeah, yeah,
And especially like when emotions and feelings and the exhaustion takes over, usually you start getting pulled in a direction that you really don't want to be in. And sometimes in that pulling is all the more aggressive, it's all the more forceful. And then at the end, it's just like, why am I being dragged around?
exactly, exactly. Who tied this to me?
I'm like, dang it, don't I have enough to worry about in my life than to be pulled around by all this extras? It's like,
Yes.
whew. And I know for me, recently, that's something that I've been just trying to, get my footing back on and get my balance in. And I know that this season for most people with everything that has been going on has just been, what's the word? Amplified of all that pulling,
Yes.
amplified of all that dragging. And I know that there was times where I said, I just want to take a nap. As an adult, can I get a time out from all this drama?
Isn't it funny how everything stopping highlights the inner drama?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. And then you're even more tired.
Right? And then you can't blame it on being busy, but it's that pulling that goes on inside of us that's doing the tired, making the draining. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement. And since we're about providing encouragement, but before we get to the encouragement part, I do want to talk a moment of like we did express, being pulled in that emotional drain. But what happens when we're not able to pick ourselves up from these feelings and emotions? And I think you said a word, you said hopelessness. But I know there's other things that are involved when we're not able to recover from these moments in our lives, recover from being pulled by the rope, so to speak. Can you give us a little bit more examples of some of the things that happens when we're not able to pick ourselves up?
Well, yes, because when we're not able to pick ourselves up, what we can end up doing is only seeing the problem that we have. And as you probably know, whatever you're focusing on is what grows. Whatever you put your attention on is what you get more of. And so if you're being pulled by those ropes, if you're focusing on the worry or the anxiety or the fear or the problems, then that's what grows. And that's one reason why it's so hard to recover your balance on your own. Until you have lots of practice recovering your balance, we tend to just focus on the problem, and then it grows. And when it grows, then you know that saying, making a mountain out of a molehill?
Mm.
Yeah, it kind of applies here because you're focusing on the problem and it grows into a mountain, and then you feel stuck. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems so big that you're just stuck. You don't even know what to do. You lose your perspective, right? Because a little person in front of a big mountain, that's a perspective that, well, that's not the kind of perspective that God gives us, but how can you climb that huge mountain is the perspective you lose creativity. You feel that pressure. And when you're feeling that pressure, when you're seeing that giant mountain in front of you, and it's feels afraid, it feels like, how can I deal with this? You feel stuck, then you're really not working from your best self.
Hmm.
You're working from like your diminished self, your unempowered self, and you can't make the best decisions when you feel tiny against a
Hmm.
big mountain.
Hmm. And I appreciate what you shared, because I think too, one of the things that you presented honestly is the reality of us being human.
Yeah,
And,
we are. Yeah.
yeah, and no one is, I think, exempt from having those experiences and needing help to kind of push through what's being seen. And I know that what's being seen right now for most of us are huge mountains. And
Yes.
every time you turn on the news, you're like, oh my gosh, if I get another mountain, I'm just gonna just scream because I can't take it anymore. And then another thing that you shared reminded me of, because you guys, I like my Bible, but it reminded me of a Bible verse. It's in 2 Corinthians 7:5-6. Paul talks about how when he was in Macedonia, that they had no rest. They were afflicted on every side. They had conflicts everywhere. Fears was within them. But at the end of the statement, he states, but God who comforts the depressed, thank you, God, comfort us by the coming of Titus. And then I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this passage. It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's been out there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts when you hear how Paul describes his experiences and how God brought them comfort?
It's kind of actually comforting to hear that Paul, this giant of the faith, feels the same way that we felt.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon. And we know then that God loved Paul. Like, if it's hard for us to think that God loves me, we know that he loves Paul. And then he comforted Paul. He cared about Paul. And those words, but God, are
Mm,
just, we were this way, but God
yeah,
sent his, in so many places, but God, if not for God.
yeah,
Just hearing that Paul needed that comfort,
yeah,
it just makes you feel not as alone. Just like you said, we're human.
yeah. And in what Deanne shared, I will repeat it because you know how I like my repeats, which is Paul exemplified being human, that there were circumstances that were going around, and in his human response, there was fatigue, there was tired, there was fear. And as already what Deanne shared too, in terms of but God, and I find that what's really encouraging in this passage as well is that in this particular case, not all times, but in this particular case, one of the ways that God comforted them was through another person. He brought someone there to kind of help uplift their spirits, let them know that they're on the right path, remind them the goodness of God, and help them to get through that fear, get through that tumultuous time in their life. And God did that by using a person.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I really am stressing the person piece because I know throughout the show we talked about finding safe people. Even in the interview that Deanne had with me, she did a wonderful job of really exemplifying what an encouragement of having the right person in your path should be and look like, and then what exudes from that encouragement. And so I say that, you guys, because, hallelujah, we are coming back and doing our workshops. We tried to do this in March, but then the pandemic hit. And so we had to regroup and adjust because I wanted to do it sooner, but I was still adjusting as you guys were adjusting. And now we're back at it. We are about to have our 3 workshops, which begins, I'm starting early because I want you guys to get in your schedules and start making plans to make it happen. And it starts August 18th, the 25th, and September 1st. There are 3 incredible online workshops. That's a Tuesday. It's going to be 7 p.m. CST. That's not EST. When I say CST, that means Central Standard Time, and EST means Eastern Standard Time. So it'll be 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I really want you guys to come out and participate and get to meet us virtually, especially those who've been listening a long time. I would love to finally see who you guys are. In our workshops, what we're going to be discussing is recovering our balance. And in that, we have some great things in store for you. We'll have activities. That's what makes it interactive. So you're not just going to come and just hear me talk or hear Deanne, because I'm going to invite Deanne. You're not going to just come and just hear us talk, but you're going to come and learn and have some activities, some tangible things that you guys can put into your everyday to help refresh your spirits. And I'll tell you this, it's going to be on a very, very, very low cost point, but exciting at the same time. We're having an early bird special for those who register early, that it'll be a whole $5. Can I say $5?
$5.
I know it. Who can get all this goodness, 3 great workshops for $5? And I'll tell you guys this too. So don't think, oh, it's only $5, ain't going to be worth anything. No, that's a lie. It's going to be worth a lot. And you're going to be like, man, that was the greatest $5 that I invested in myself so that I can be rejuvenated, so I can feel a value. And we're just going to have a great time going through the things that Deanne and I discussed today about recovering our balance and having that hope and not feeling pulled by that rope, but we're going to be full on the hope of God. I kind of let it out the bag already, but Deanne, will you be in the workshops?
Oh, how could I miss something as fantastic as these workshops?
Yeah, I appreciate it. See, again, you guys, I tell you, it's good to have somebody that's encouraging in your background, and that's what we want to be for you guys. So you heard it here, $5 whole, 3 great workshops, August 18th, 25th, September 1st. They're an hour and a half. You can go online to register, and we need you to register because it is an online workshop, and you need to figure out how to get to the workshops. You got to register to get the URL and all that good stuff. And you can register at healingpeace.com/register. You guys, thank you for listening today. Thank you for allowing us to do a little change up and being part of the journey. And I look forward to having you back next week, because what we're going to do for the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about what's in those workshops so you know why you should come back. So until then, enjoy your week, and I'll see you next week.